It's a sunny Marlborough Sunday and we're trying to fit a cabinet under the sink today, without removing the already glued in sink. We were hoping we'd get lucky and we'd be able to tilt it into the right position and kind of lever it in with the right holes already cut in there, but it quickly became apparent that that wasn't going to happen. Time for a plan B. So while I disassembled the frame, Nick got to work in templating out all the areas I needed to cut. We started by cutting the drain hole out of the base panel, and it went perfectly, as far as I knew.
Yes!
Cue the celebration, and...
Bottom. Fuck! Goes on that way, which means I'm 20 mil out.
Come on, pull it out. Let's try again.
It seems the fuck-up fairy follows me wherever I go. So out it came to try again. When trying to move a hole like this, the hole saw bit needs a guide, otherwise it'll just jump all around your work. In my case, I tried to use a piece of plasterboard. Don't do that.
That's horrible.
So I tried again with pine and I had much better results.
Yeah? Clean.
Having drilled the right hole, it slotted in nicely.
Sweet.
I scribed the various marks onto the back panel, and before starting to cut I actually double checked it this time. But when the fuck-up fairy is your constant companion, that doesn't really mean much. Now if you weren't already aware, I'm a bit of an expert at hole sawing. Oh wait, no, the opposite of that. I drilled about halfway through on the first side and then flipped it over and finished off the cut on the other side, which reduced the chip out quite a lot. Next came a cutout for the power plug. I cleaned up those tap holes in the middle and then made myself a clearance hole for the sink, which I needed to recut about 4 times to get it right. So with it all cut to shape, I could manoeuvre it into place, awkwardly. As you can see, it was a bit of a tight fit for the sink drain, but with some jiggery pokery, it slotted into place nicely. Next came the base of the cabinet, and then it was time for my favourite kind of renovating, percussive maintenance. Harder, give it a good whack. There it is. Next came the feet.
Oh, I see.
And it was starting to look like a cabinet. With the legs adjusted to hide, it took the weight of that back panel, so I could start to attach things together.
Beautiful.
Except for the shoddy cutting work. One of the hardest parts of this was trying to figure out how to attach the various panels together. Pocket holes sort of worked, but the chipboard really didn't like it. And then I had another visit from the fairy.
Just no. Just no.
Yep. Forgot to account for the hose. I'm really considering charging the fairy rent. So whipping out the multi-tool again, I busted out a bigger hole. At this point I could reconnect all the plumbing and get the sink functional again, which was a much needed confidence boost. To get the left-hand panel and the bracing piece in place, I had to get a little bit creative with my feet. And to be fair, Nick did offer to help, but did I accept? No. I'm sure a therapist would have something to say about toxic independence. Meanwhile...
Well, shit.
apparently I managed to break a screw in the hole, so I chucked in another one and got to work on the right hand panel, and that went pretty smoothly. Honestly, that multi-tool has to be one of my most used tools. It's brilliant. And to my utmost surprise, the first test fit was the best test fit.
Oh, it made me happy.
Do you need a room? Ooh. I did cave and get an assist with this last panel. It was a little tricky on my own.
Ooh.
Meet JJ. He's an asshole. Don't be like JJ.
Don't edit it out.
Home stretch, I couldn't possibly make any more mistakes, right? Mistakes like putting a slot in the wrong end of a shelf,
Does
say.
it run the wrong way?
Did I screw it? This is DIY.
Fortunately, I was able to flip it round and move the central hole slightly, which meant we were back in business. I threaded the drain through the slightly expanded hole and could move on to the doors. Fortunately, they were pretty standard. All of our holes were pre-drilled, so it was just a matter of fitting in the hinges and doing up the screws. A piece went on the door and a piece went on the frame, and they just clipped together. I spent about 5 minutes getting the hinges adjusted and then moved on to the handles, and they just screwed right into the top of the doors. I had a few sins to hide, so I busted out a can of paint and just covered up the chipboard that was now exposed. And there it sat. For more than a year, missing its skirt board and trim pieces, whilst I've been renovating my kitchen and lounge. But eventually, I made it back to finish the job. The kickboard was nice and easy, it just clipped directly onto the feet. The trim piece, however, was about as stubborn as I am, and required just as much support. I needed to give it something to mount to, so I used one of the offcuts and glued it into place behind. I clamped that to the side and let it settle, and then did the same thing on the other side. But because I had better access, I could use screws. That meant my glued in trim piece would be supported on all sides. And while the glue dried, I cut the remaining piece to size. But I didn't do it very well. It's a bugger. Unfortunately, I was stuck with that piece, unless I wanted to go by another 2 metre length, so I persevered and did my very best to hide all the evidence. If you'd like to see the lounge renovation I mentioned earlier, you can catch that video here, and in that I rip out an entire wall. In the meantime, I reckon that deserves a beer. and I'll see you on the next one.